Morning, mate. How are you?
Hi, mate. I'm good.
like-
I'm good. How are you?
I'm all right. It's like looking in the mirror.
Ah,
I haven't got the
No.
posh glasses on. Thanks very much for the time, mate. I appreciate it.
pleasure. My absolute pleasure.
I have a couple of things. I hope you don't mind. I had a couple of things off Packwood before I spoke to you.
Oh, is it? Go on, then.
No. He just gave me a few things. He just asked me if you'd still had Jay Bedford's wash bag. Whatever that. I don't even know what that means. That could be a euphemism. I've no idea.
Still do.
Welcome to the Crossing the Pond podcast, hosted by me, Gary Adair, where each week our guests will recount their own experiences of resilience and transformation, whether it's moving to a new country, tackling health challenges, changing careers, or breaking through personal barriers. This week we welcome Mark Simpson. Before building one of the most recognised direct booking platforms in the short-term rental world, Mark spent several years in the US, coaching soccer and learning the art of leadership and teamwork firsthand. When he returned to his hometown of Scarborough in 2008, he brought with him a playbook of ideas that would eventually fuel the creation of Boostly. Mark talks about how he's managed to scale his business while building a high-performing team and creating a work-life balance, ultimately supporting his own success and well-being, whilst enabling him to build a flourishing business on his own terms. If you don't mind indulging me for a little bit, what brought you to the US? What year would that have been as well?
Well, Seattle was 2008 when I met Tony, but I've been doing the America thing since 2002. I first landed in Tennessee, and I did it because of the same reason Tony did with Challenger Sports. That was the reason why I came over. I was assigned to Memphis back in 2002. Loved it. Went back there for a couple of years. Then did a stint over in the Carolinas, and then did a stint up in the Northeast. And then eventually 1 year I came back, and I did it over in California for a couple of years. And then that's obviously when I met Tony, when I did the Seattle sort of regions, because I had a franchise in the UK in Scarborough. That's where I was born. And the franchise was that I could pretty much go away from, say, June, come back September, October time, and then just pick up my franchise of like the football coach that I had in Scarborough area. So it was a nice little gig.
Yeah, not bad at all. What was it like when you first got here then? So I mean, it's funny because it's almost like very different places every year. Did you find it easy to adapt to each region as you came back?
Yeah, I mean it's a bit mad, like thing, because that's 20 years ago now. And you just, I was, just about turned 21. So you just get on for it. You're just there for the beers at the weekend. You're staying with amazing people, traveling around. You don't really feel about culture or settling in and things like that, or what people are doing. Obviously down in the Bible Belt there, you're obviously, there's new things like saying grace at a table and things that you don't do in the United Kingdom. But you just crack on with it, you know what I mean? And I loved it. I bought right into it. I love the American the American way of thinking that's so different to the UK, where, obviously in the US, if you see a guy on the top of the hill in a nice house, you're like, in America, it's like, I want to be that guy, where in the UK, it's like, I want to get that guy. And I love that whole mindset about America. And whenever I come back now and I speak at events and I fly back, I'm always so pumped. I'm always like up for it. I'm like ready to like go again in the business when I get back. It just has that sort of American dream vibe to it.
It's funny, isn't it? Like I saw something the other day. It's like the Americans champion the underdog, but the English will champion the underdog until he's not an underdog anymore, and then they can't stand him.
Yeah, 100%. I've seen that with Boostly as well. Like when I first got going, there was people in the UK that were like, "Yeah, well, absolutely, we'll get you speaking at these events. We'll help you, yada yada yada." A few years later, when I'm like on the stage speaking and I've like sort of done well, those same people are the ones that are sort of start talking behind your back, trying to belittle you and bring you down. It's mad, you know what I mean?
Yeah. So obviously you're taking a lot from your time in the US. How did that, like on a larger scale or on a bigger scale, how did that shape just the way that you interacted, the way that you went about things? Because again, 21, you're very impressionable, early 20s, you go back a couple of years, you're working within your franchise back in the UK. What are you picking every single time you come over to take back for the following season in the autumn when you go back to Scarborough?
Well, you obviously take back new drills, because obviously I was doing soccer coaching when I was over in the States, came back to a soccer coaching franchise. And so, you take back so much more experience. And instead of me just staying in my bubble with Scarborough, and Scarborough is a very bubbly place, it's not easy to get onto like to other areas. It takes you an hour and a half just to get onto the, A1, the M1.
Right past all the deck chairs.
Yeah, exactly. So you can easily settle in your bubble in that place. And there was loads of people that I knew who did the school, did the college, never went to uni, got like a tradie job, and they're still there now. And for me to be able to get out, escape, have that sort of experience, meet loads of people, coaches from all different backgrounds. They weren't just UK people that were going over. There's people from all over going over there. And you come back and, obviously you learn loads of good stuff. And it made me a better coach, made me a better human. I learned loads, and you do sort of learn more about being like self-dependent, because obviously when I was in the UK, I was living at home. So you learn to be more self-independent and all of that. So yeah, there's loads I picked out, and every single year you go back, you get a bit more confident, you get a bit older, a bit wiser. So yeah, I learned a ton over that time.
Was there anything you definitely wouldn't bring back
from America?
From the US?
Yeah, a green card and a wife.
That's fair enough. So did you begin? So while you were over there with Challenger, did you sort of stick to your own a little bit, or did you explore those different US pathways? Was it?
So for the most part, let's just say you're out there for 3 months, you get a 5-month visa. I think it was whatever visa it were. You had a 5-month visa, and for 3 months you were pretty much solid every week. You're going to go to this camp, come back to base, go to that, come back to base. You have like a week off at July the 4th week to have like a time off where you go off as a group of coaches. But really, your experiences that you gather are from staying with the families where you go, because you're never normally in the same place twice. It's not like the Camp America thing that was obviously another big franchise. It's you are moving on the move every week. There is a little bit of wriggle room for travel, but it just really depends. In 2008, when we met our mutual friend Tony, when I finished my stint in Seattle, I had a buddy fly in to, he met us in San Diego. So I flew down to San Diego, we got a car, and we drove all up and down the PCH, went to Vegas for my birthday and things like that. So we did do a bit of that. From 2006 to 2008, I didn't actually go back to the UK, which is a bit mad. So I finished my 2006 stint, it was in October. And that same friend of mine I was just talking about a minute ago, he had just graduated from uni, and he wanted to do traveling, and he wanted to go east. So I just hopped on a plane and I met him in Bangkok. That began 2 years of traveling. I went to Australia, did all the things over there. And then funny enough, as the 2007 summer came along, the RD, the regional director of California, said, "Do you want to come back?" And I was like, "Yeah, sound." So I left the winter of Australia to fly to California for 3-4 months, and then I just flew straight back. So that was like a mad two and a bit years. Absolutely loved that part of it, learned so much. But again, I think that was the time when I sort of used it to doing our own little travels around.
Yeah. Did you always have you said about the franchise at home as well, have you always had that sort of entrepreneurial instinct?
I think so.
From the get-go?
I think so, especially seeing that now what I've done with Boostly, like now I've got a team of 30 staff members. We've got a 7-figure business that we've built helping Airbnb hosts. And, you look back to those little moments and, I could always say no, but I look back to when I was growing up in the farm stay family business. It was like accommodation. It was a guest house. We had people coming in from all over the world to that little guest house. And on weekends, I'd sit there with a little tuck shop selling Mars bars and whatnot. Which was funny because nobody bought out and I just ended up eating all the chocolates. So, but I feel like I've had that definitely since young. Because again, my parents were business owners, were entrepreneurs. I just sort of saw what they were doing, I guess. And it's obviously had a wriggle room on me, which will be interesting if it's got like the same wriggle room on the kid. I've got 4 kids. I've got 3 boys and a girl. It'd be interesting if they've got the entrepreneurial bug that the older they get.
Yeah. I don't know if you want to go on about this one, but Paco mentioned this to me as well. Is it true that you had some sort of YouTube or while you were over here?
Yeah, definitely don't want to talk about that. Definitely don't want to talk about that. But yeah,
the crazy thing is, like, that would be something that would probably make a fortune these days. I don't know.
Yeah, it
put you in all sorts of trouble, but it would.
So funny thing is this was when like the whole Jackass thing was really popular, and there was this guy who brought out a book that was really it was around that sort of thing. And I remember emailing him back in 2007 saying, "I've done this. I want to document it. I think it'd be massive." And he gave me a bit of advice. I made like a video, a very rough, shitty video, and it will never, ever, ever see the light of day ever.
It's funny. I wasn't sure if it had been posted anywhere, but it was basically just like coaches acting the GOAT, wasn't it? Outside of
Coaches acting the GOAT is the best way to describe it.
Yeah.
And it was, so it was, I put it as an unlisted video on somewhere, and I just shared it with the people that we were with that summer. But then obviously, like, I was an idiot back then, and it obviously got shared around. I tried to put it as private where you needed a password, but it just got around, and some people saw it, got in trouble, and it's deleted and will never see the light of day.
That's fair enough. I couldn't have this conversation with you today, mate, without at least touching on it, because a lot of us have always talked about doing something like that. But like you said, when you look back at it in 15 years down the line, it's like, you know what, probably not the best idea. So what was your final year in the US? Which year?
Yeah, it was that 2008.
And was it 2008? Yeah. So when you come back, was it an easy transition? You just fell back into your coaching little franchise? And
well, I didn't have the franchise when I got back. That was the mad thing. 2006, when I left to go east to Thailand, Australia, and whatnot, I packed that in. So when I got back in 2008, it's weird. So for the last 2 and a bit years, me and my friend have been traveling around. We've lived in, like, Sydney, LA. We've lived in these amazing places, and we're back in Scarborough. And I remember we were sat in Wetherspoons, January sort of 2009, and we're like, what are we doing? What are we doing here? And we just sort of hatched a plan to move to London, and that's what we did. We booked a train for May just to get a bit of money together. So we booked a train for May to go down to London one way, and we're going to give it a go there. And literally the next day, I went to a recruitment company. I said, listen, I need some money. I'm a temp. Go get me somewhere. They put me in this place called Yellow Pages. I was just doing a whatever job. And it was on that first day that I met my future wife. So it's funny how things happen. Yeah.
So can you walk us through the moment where, like, the plan for Boostly came about? Did it come from you traveling around, or was it something that you took on? Again, you mentioned about your parents having accommodations as a kid.
Yeah.
Was it something that you saw that?
Yeah.
Where did it come from?
So in 2000, so we moved down to London 2009. My girlfriend at the time, joined me a couple of months later. My friend moved back up to Sheffield because he hated London, and we stuck around there for a couple of years. 2011, we moved back up north, and it was at that time when my parents still had the business, 25 year in. I'm the oldest of 4, and they were looking for one of us to come into the business to help eventually take it over. And my younger siblings weren't in that frame of mind, but me and my wife were like, we'll give it a go. So we came into the business full time and sort of help them run the business with a goal of eventually one day taking it over. But as we very quickly realized, when you're working with your parents and obviously working with your wife, and my wife was working with her in-laws, that was never going to happen. It was never going to be a good thing. So 2016, 2017, we said, listen, we're going to leave. The parents wanted to exit the business anyway, that they eventually did do just after COVID, which was great. But we were like, we want to go do our own thing. And when we're thinking about the own thing, it was getting traveling again. But I was like, well, what could I do that I could work, but we could be anywhere, like digital nomad style? And I kept coming back to coaching. And I was like, well, who am I going to work? Like, who am I going to coach? And it just kept going down the route of hospitality. Like, I knew it well. I enjoyed marketing. I enjoyed sales. I enjoyed all of that. I enjoyed social media. I enjoyed all the online things. And I realized that there were so many business owners in the world of Airbnb that were shocking when it comes to marketing. So I just went down that rabbit hole. Our mutual friend Tony put me onto a guy called Tim Ferriss, read his book, 4 Hour Workweek, devoured it, loved it. And then I just sort of kept trying to implement things and set it up. 2016, it was basically 2016 on my birthday, created it, and just never really looked back since.
Was there a specific sort of frustration or story from your own experiences? I know, like you said, like Anthony gave you the book or put you onto the book and you read the book. Was there anything that just kept popping up that made you think to yourself, direct bookings or the way that Boostly works was the future, was the way to go?
Yeah. So when we exited the business, we were 80% direct. And we were never, ever stressed about Booking.com changing their policies, Airbnb changing their algorithms or their rules. And, we had multiple revenue streams. It's one of the reasons why I added a lot of zeros on the end to the exit. But for a lot of people that I saw, they were bemoaning the fact of, like, Airbnb and Airbnb guests and Booking.com guests. And I could see there was a massive, like, gap in the market. the first thing that I did is I went to our local tourism board in Scarborough, and I just said, hey, is there any training for hosts? Like, do you ever put anything on? And they said, no, we've got nothing in the budget. Did a little bit of Googling just to see who was out there. And there was 2 people at the time who were sort of doing coaching on this fact. And they were really out of date, really old. And the advice that they were giving was shocking. And so I just jumped in, you know, and I just started producing free content, started a podcast. That's now that podcast is about to hit 800 episodes, like 10 years later.
It's great.
We created a Facebook group called the Hospitality Community, and just I created it, to be honest, just for the Scarborough and Whitby area, because there was a lot of bed and breakfast hosts in that area. But with Facebook, if something works, the word spreads. And so I noticed that there was people joining the group who are from like Edinburgh, Liverpool, Manchester, you know, then Ireland. And then I noticed there was expats in Spain and France and Germany joining. And then we had the Americans join and Australians. And before I knew it, we got to 1,000 members. And, you know, every single day I was answering questions in the group. I just showed up every day, give help and advice. And it got to a point where I was answering more questions from hosts than I was from our guests that were going to appear at the farm. And so I said to my wife, I said, we've got to do something here. And she gave me the idea for Boostly. It's short for Boost Hospitality. And I just, you know, joined a program that was Thinkific. So it was like an online coursing program. I just recorded tons of videos of me doing what I was doing. And I just put a post out in the group. I said, listen, I need 5 guinea pigs. Pay me 100 quid, really low amount. You test it. You let me know what's good, what works, what doesn't. And I just went from there.
It's a really good idea. I mean, obviously it's kicked off pretty quickly, but what were some of the early teething problems getting it going?
Yeah. So my first mistake, and there's been loads along the ways, was that I started it as a done for you one-on-one model. So where I would go into a business, I would see what they were doing and I would improve it. But the problem with that is I had no room to scale. I could only work with 5 clients at a time, and I was charging ridiculously low amount. It was like 500 quid a month, which was really, really stupidly low. And so I had that feast and famine where I had like 5 clients, great, 2,500. That's going to pay the bills. Brilliant. Nice one. But then after 6 months, if they all left, I was back down to 0. And I was always in that thing. And plus in the back of the mind, I wanted to travel. We went traveling for 3 months around Thailand, me and the wife, and we had 2 kids at the time. I got back and all the clients were like, I don't want to continue anymore. So I was like, oh shit, I've got no clients. So 2017, I took the move to pivot it to that one-to-many model, where again, I had the coaching programs and I went all in on there, so I could just sell that, not be reliant on it. We put it at like a decently monthly rate of like, I don't know, like say 20 quid. Again, massively underpriced it, and off we went. But that was like the first big mistake that I made, was that.
Yeah. How do you view the coaching side of it then? From, you know, you've gone from coaching footy to kids to coaching hosts and,
yeah,
you know, through your business there. Do you see similarities? Is it just a case of knowing the content and being able to deliver that content to people?
Yeah. The thing that I always relate is that when you're coaching kids and like youth development, whether it's like a 4-year-old, a 5-year-old, 6-year-old, 8-year-old, is you've got to take this concept and you've got to dumb it down to make sure that anybody can understand it. Doesn't matter what the skill level is. And it's the same with this. Like, I am taking some complex things that we talk about, whether it's email marketing, social media, algorithms. And I think my sort of unique selling point is that I can really dumb it down and make it understandable and actionable. And so there's definitely some similarities there for sure. And, you know, I designed everything is that if my mum can understand this, anyone can understand this. Because my mum is the type of person when it comes to the internet is that she'll type out an email and she'll look where to stick the stamp before she sends it. You know what I mean? So it's like, that's the sort of person that I'm dealing with online skills here. So I created everything that took around is that if she can understand it, anyone can understand it.
What sort of things are you telling my mum, for example, like just to make it really, really simple when it comes to?
Yeah, well, the business has evolved since then. So I try not to work with like people like your mum anymore. I'm sort of leveling up to like proper businesses. And I feel like my avatar, I talk about avatar a lot. Like, avatar is basically our ideal customer. My avatar has evolved over time. And so now the training that we do and the work that we do is aimed at people who are, you know, still around that sort of 30, 40, 50 mark, but are switched on. They are proper business owners. They're not like hobbyist hosts, so to speak, where they just got the one Airbnb. They're not bothered about growing a business out of it. They're you know, that's not my target. My target audience, people now have got, you know, maybe 5, 6, 7, 10, 20, 100 properties, and they're really looking to make a go of this, whether it's owned, whether it's arbitrage, which is rent to rent, or if it's the management model. But back in the day when I first got going, that was my avatar, and that made up the majority of my audience. And then over time, that's just sort of tweaked and improved.
Yeah, you basically just moved up the chain a little
I've
bit.
just leveled up. Yeah, just leveled up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's Boostly's approach? What makes Boostly's approach different from from the majority of, like, call them online travel agencies, like, your Airbnb, your Booking.com?
Yeah, well, what we do now, like our core thing is that we do website design. So what I realized in doing the coaching thing is that there's loads of hosts that want to build a business and, whether not reliant on Airbnb, but the website was crap. And I was like, well, you got to do this to your website, or tell your website designer to do this. And they all were like, well, I can't do it, and my website designer won't let me do it. So I thought, right, well, we'll start doing website design. And that has really become our niche. So we provide websites for hosts and we make it look epic. We make it work. And then we provide the coaching and the training on the back end. Because I say to people, anybody can go get a website from Fiverr, pay $100, $200. But, at the end of the day, you want a website that you know how to drive traffic to. So that really what stands us out from the rest. So the people will still be on Airbnb, 100%. They'll have a Verbo listing and a Booking.com listing and the like. But what I show them is how they can build a business where they can get bookings coming in, revenue coming in, but they're not solely reliant on that one platform to do it.
What are some of the key strategies that you've used to keep people engaged?
So the thing that I always talk about, and I say this a lot, I built a community first and then I built the business second. I'm not just like selling an Amazon store here. I'm actually selling something that will help them as they grow. And I did a lot of stuff for free at the start. I built that community. I sort of became a mini influencer in my sphere, so to speak. And then I built the business after that. And so by keeping the host together is that we built this community. When people join, they aren't just left to their own devices. They get tapped into this community that's got about 10,000 years worth of hospitality experience. And, a lot of people feel leveled up. And that's how we keep them engaged. That's how we keep them around. We've built a product that's very sticky. Because again, the reason why we did website design, yes, was most of our host websites were crap that we're working with. But we wanted to make sure that our product was sticky, because with the coaching model, what you'll find is that you'll have somebody join month one, they'll pay the money, say like it's $100 a month. And then second month comes along and that second payment comes out. And if they've not done anything, that's when that buyer's remorse starts to kick in. They go, I've not really done out this month. And if the third month comes around and they've still not done anything, then they go, I'll just cancel this. So we were like, well, what can we have where we're not going to have people just leaving after 3 months? We don't want the churn to be high. And by putting a website design into the business, again, it makes the churn really low, because once you get a good website, you never leave, really, truthfully, especially with all the other things that we do as well. So our churn is like 1-2%, which is very, very low. So that's really what I've become our unique selling point.
Yeah, on the community side of it, and this is an obvious question, I suppose, but how do you value that sense of community with people that might not even meet you in person?
Yeah, it's things that have sort of crossed my mind over time. I did do a in-person event meetup back end of 2023. I called it the Big Boostly Bash, and it was great to have people that have been online friends for years meeting in real life. And I do truly believe, especially with where we're going with AI and and all of these robots that are coming in, I feel like at the end of the day, humans love a tribe. They love being part of a community. And I feel like for online communities, the more in person that you can do eventually will just make your business better and your community better. So it's something that is on my sort of wavelength for 2026, moving forward, how we can do more of them. Because again, like I do love the online world. Meeting up in Zooms and whatnot is great just to see the people there. But I feel moving forward, the more in person you can do, the better the business and the vibe and the community will be on the back of it.
Yeah. How does the traveling help you? Like the fact that, like you said, then you've got people in Australia, you've got people in the US, people all over England and definitely other places as well. The fact that you've been to these places along your travels, along the years, either working or traveling.
Yeah.
How does that help you as far as just...
It definitely helps knowing the lay of the land, because I went to go speak in Dubai at the back end of last year. Without me going to speak in Dubai and being in Dubai and being around the people there, I would not have known the true reality of what is there. So I could talk about what they need to be doing, but once you're there, you realize like what is the lay of the land of things that they have to get around and stuff. I'm about to go and speak in South Africa next month for the first time ever, going to Cape Town, and I'm really excited for it because I'll be able to get a much better vibe of the struggles that they have down there as hosts, as business owners. The rand has got a shocking conversion rate, so it's like, how can we, people in the Northern Hemisphere, help these South African hosts in terms of what we charge and the advice that we give? So it is massively important, again, just by being traveled and knowing these places. Because I've seen it from the other aspect. There was in Dubai last year, there was somebody came to talk, and they came prepared with a speech, and they didn't pivot or was flexible with their talk based on the people that were in the room. And the 30, 45-minute talk that they gave was shocking. It was really out of date, out of touch, didn't relate to anybody in that room. And so, yeah, I've always been a big fan. You've got to be able to know the area to give like advice and feedback to them.
Yeah, it's like anything, isn't it? Like you see, you could have a keyboard warrior online, knows everything that they've seen online, but it's nothing to actually being in the room.
Yeah.
So you at this point, you are like, you would consider yourself a recognizable voice in the hospitality space. Like, has that just evolved organically? Like you going to Cape Town in, a couple of weeks, has that just evolved organically?
No, massively. There's just been these hockey puck moments in the last 10 years of my life that have just sort of mean that it just goes to the next level. So for example, one of the things in 2020, 2021, obviously we had COVID. So everybody was locked in their houses. And so I got on that Clubhouse app that was popular at the time. And I started being part of conversations and rooms around Airbnb. And I ended up hosting my own room that was a 24-hour like marathon. I obviously wasn't on for 24 hours, but I got people around the world to help run the room while I was asleep. But because it was my name on the door, I got attached and I got invited into these other rooms from other big Airbnb influencers, so to speak. And when it came to 2022, I wrote a book and I published a book on Amazon. It was called The Book Diet Playbook. And with that, combined with Clubhouse, I started to get invited to speak at events as lockdowns were sort of stopping and countries were opening up. 2022, I went to Nashville and I spoke on a stage in front of 1,500 people. And that was a huge hockey puck moment. Obviously, 1,500 people in the room. We generated a ton of revenue on the back of that talk. But as well, you've got all the social media that goes on the back of it. So a lot of people had the awareness of me and Boostly on the back of that. And the mad thing is that when I was there in that room before getting up on stage and speaking, 80% of the people in that room didn't have a clue who I was. But by the time of it, everybody knew how I was just because the talk went down so well. And so that was like a big moment. And there's just been these sort of little hockey puck moments over the years. There's a big podcast called the Bigger Pocket Podcast in America. They've got like 2 million downloads a month. In 2023, I went on that podcast. And again, hockey puck moment. People see you on that podcast, you instantly go up in your standings and people want you on their podcast and go speak at their events. And, I feel like it's been very organic. It's been very slow, but I've just been consistently talking about the same thing for the last 10 years now. And it just means I get more doors opened up. But the biggest struggle has been now is learning when to say no to things. Because when you first start out, you say yes to everything. But as you grow, the true challenge is to learn what to say no to and what to say yes to, because otherwise you can easily just get yourself burnt out or going down the wrong path.
Yeah, that's true. How do you cope with that? Or how did you start coping that with like walking that fine line with potentially pissing someone off for saying, nah, listen, it's not going to work for me at this moment? Is it?
Yeah.
What gives you the confidence to do that?
Well, first and foremost, I always think back to why I started this whole thing. So I started this business because I wanted to be able to travel, be with my kids, be with my wife. And the family business was so full on. Like we were ships in the night. My wife and I, we barely saw each other. I barely saw like my eldest. So when I started Boostly, it was to be built around them. And I always think back to that. And, again, I learned this from Tim Ferriss. There's a nice way to say no. I always find by saying, listen, I'm spread really thin at the moment. Nobody's going to follow that up and be arsy with you. There's a way to say no, but it's a mad thing. When you learn to say no the right way, it opens up so many better yeses down the line. And I've just always trusted my gut. We always ask ourselves, my wife and I, when we get like a question of something that comes our way, we go, is this a hell yeah? Like, for example, South Africa, when that dropped in my inbox, the first thing that I asked Laura was, is this a hell yeah? Because we're all going to go as a family. And if it's not a hell yeah, it's a no. And I've always just lived by that sort of saying, and that by quote by Derek Sivers. And it stood us all right for the test of time so far.
Yeah, it is so true, because I mean, I'll be the first one. I'm slowly getting to that point, but it's very, very difficult to say no to people.
Yeah.
But like you said, maybe it frees up that little bit of time to go and do something else down the line that you might not have had the chance for. No, it's cool. It's a good point. On a personal level, what's it like for you being, call it a disruptor to these bigger tech sort of institutions of accommodation and hospitality?
Yeah, it's cool. I mean, when I started this as well, when I started Boostly, I read this book by Donald Miller called StoryBrand. And what I've realized is that business is just a story, and you've got to craft your story. You know, there's a hero, there's a villain, and then there's a guide. And I think the biggest mistake I see business owners make is that they paint themselves as the hero, when really business owners are the guide. Like, the hero is your customer. And I needed a villain in the story. And the easy villain was the OTAs. It was Airbnb, Booking.com, and Vrbo. And I've got no problem with these companies, like, at all. I use Airbnb, I use Booking.com, I use Vrbo. I use them as a consumer. But when I'm painting a story to get people to properly buy into the community, into the business, I paint them as the villain. I show them everything that they're doing wrong, and it just works. And to be that plucky upstart that's taking them on is cool. And again, it gets people to buy in on the story. And, at the end of the day, my problem isn't with Airbnb, Vrbo, or Booking.com. My problem is with the hosts who are just so reliant on those platforms. Because I've seen it so much over the years. There's people that are 100% reliant on Airbnb for their bookings coming in. And all it takes is just a little mishap. It could be a couple of bad reviews. It could be your account getting suspended or deleted. And then you're screwed. And you've literally got nothing to fall back on. And unfortunately, that's when people mostly come to me and they go, Mark, I need help. And so I'd much rather that they, are multi-platform. They start to have like that base of a diet booking business, and then they can come to us and we can definitely improve it. That's why I wrote the books, the playbook and the book Diet Blueprint, just to give them that sort of heads up and advice.
Is that a common thing? Like, I was going to get to like people who subscribe and how you keep yourself relevant. Is that a common thing that people will just go on one platform and then it doesn't work out, so they jump to another platform instead of just having multiple up?
Yeah, well, 80% of Airbnb is made up of one property hosts, managers, etc. And then 50% of the inventory on Airbnb, and we're talking millions of listings, for 50% of that inventory is just on Airbnb. So yeah, it is. It's a lot. And if you think about it, this is credit to the Airbnb marketing and branding team, because they have made it look so simple that you just need to be on that one platform. Obviously, they want people to be exclusive on that platform, and they do everything in their power to make it look like it literally just needs to be Airbnb. And then I just come in, and just sort of educate and show people how to be multi-platform, how to do it right, how to do the basics, and then how to go and get your own bookings, because it really is simple. It isn't as hard as what people think, and you don't have to spend a lot of money. The big misconception is that you have to go spend thousands up with Meta, which is Facebook and Instagram, but you really truly don't. A lot of the things that I teach don't cost any money.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? It's like the universal term for a place that you're going to stay in, isn't it? It's like using a Hoover.
Yeah,
it's not a Hoover, is it? It's a vacuum cleaner, but it's like, I'm going to use an apartment, or I'm going in an Airbnb.
Yeah, well, they've done the right thing. They've verbiage short-term rentals. That's literally what they've done. So you're right. Nobody walks around saying I'm staying in a Vrbo. No one walks around saying I'm staying in a Booking.com. But they all walk around saying I'm staying in an Airbnb. And fair play to them. So my whole thing is that I want to show people how they can build a brand to where they go and stay at your place. When they go back home and they're in their friend group or on the school run or whatever, and they go, oh, where did you stay? They don't go, I stayed at an Airbnb in New York. They go, oh, I stayed at this amazing whatever, right? Amazing farm, this amazing treehouse apartment that had all the things going on. And they say the business name. They don't just say, oh, I stayed in an Airbnb.
How important is that storytelling for personal branding for the people that you work with?
Yeah, I mean, it is everything, because at the end of the day, if you can brand yourself the right way, you will never have to do your own sales and marketing again. So if there's so many examples of it, and a real cool one at the moment, there's a chap who's traveling around America at the moment with his wife. He's called Ryan Trahan. He's doing 50 states, 50 days, staying in 50 places. And he's booking his stay, annoyingly, on Airbnb for everywhere. But the places that he's staying at is really intriguing, because the ones that do the personal branding, there's one called Treetopia, which is a tree house in Oklahoma. There's a place called Outpost, which is in the middle of Nevada. these are the places that are getting tons and tons of bookings and exposure on the back of it. These videos have had, he's on about 50 million views in the last 14 days. Every single video is topping 2-3 million views. So these places that he's staying at, they should be getting all of the exposure. But there's only about he's on 23 at the moment at the time of recording. There's only 2 or 3 of them that have really done it the right way and blown up their own Instagrams, blown up their own bookings. And that's all because of a personal brand. I am remembering it now, just talking off the cuff. If you asked that question about Treetopia, about Outpost, there's so many other places that he stayed at. I couldn't even tell you where they were. You know what I mean? They are just literally Airbnbs. So if you
it's all coming from his.
Yeah. So if you do it right, if you do it well, it's phenomenal. Like our family business was called The Granary. It was a farm stay tea rooms. We built that brand around it. We knew exactly who our audience was. We knew exactly who our avatar was, our ideal guest, and we just went all in on it. And we became the go-to place. If you were going to Scarborough, you wanted to have that stay away from the city, a working farm experience. You came to stay with us. You didn't go anywhere else.
To go back to the coaching for a little bit, how has it been? You say you've got a team of 30 odd people now. Like, how is it you running that? Like, how is coaching that group any different from anything else you've done before? Is it any different, or is it the same thing? Like, you just, this is the content, this is what we're trying to push?
Yeah. So,
or do you give them the tools and just push them out into the space?
I think it's the big thing that I've had to learn is delegation. Again, I've had to learn not to try and do it all myself. I've had to learn that it's not me who has to do everything. I have to hire good people and get out their way. But again, I take on board the things that I have learned over the years in terms of organization, the terms of putting things in structure, about making sure you've got everything noted down, SOPs. An SOP is basically a playbook, like a coaching playbook, right? How do you run this play, right? How do you run this coaching drill? It's like, how do you run this drill when a customer emails in saying that they can't access their website? All it is good documentation. And again, I learned that with the coaching world and brought it into the business world.
No, that's decent. How do you, with all this you've got going on, obviously clear focus, everything else, how do you manage this? Like, how do you stay true to that idea when you first set out that this is going to be me, family first, wife, kids, and then the business is going to move alongside it? What do you do, like, to make sure that stays true after all this time?
Yeah.
Because even, for example, like, you and I setting up this call, you were very clear about, listen, today's not the day, I'm not answering calls, I'm away, which again is that nice way of saying no.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's true though, isn't it? Like
yeah.
I understand it, I get it, but how do you make sure that you are?
I've just got my set calendar, I've got it down, and I 99.9% of the time, I don't wriggle around it. I don't have any wriggle room for it. So it has to be in these times. Like right now in the UK, it's 1:30 p.m. I'm about an hour and a half away from going to pick the kids up from school. So no one will be able to speak to me. In my calendar, it literally, as of 3 p.m. up until 8:30 p.m., it's family time, no calls ever. And I stick to it, and it's set in stone. And I just never go outside of that. And like I said, holidays. So we have the school holidays starting in about 2 weeks today in the UK. And after the 15th of July, no one's going to be able to speak to me until the 1st or 4th of September. One, we're going traveling, but 2, it's the holiday. So I'll still be online for emails and WhatsApps with the team, but they all know I won't be on any Zoom calls. I won't be doing any podcasts or anything after the 15th of July up until like the 4th of September, and I stick to it, and I'm very clear about communications.
Do you ever get itchy feet
in terms
of when you are away? Like, are you just like, just let me nip on this and sort this out quick, or have you really come to the point now where you like delegations in full effect?
Yeah. So a thing that I learned a long time ago, I'm a big fan of these Marvel movies. The Avengers, right? The Avengers come in, they save New York, but what happens afterwards? They save New York, and then they leave an absolute like shit show of destruction behind them. Right. If there's a problem, I could come in and I could solve it, be like the Captain America, like the Superman or whatever. But then I leave a path of destruction. And as well, my team go, oh, he doesn't trust me. He doesn't trust me to fix this solution. So I've just learned over time. And now I do have a team. I'm a big fan of this guy called Mike Michalowicz. He wrote a book called Clockwork. Read that as well as Who Not How. And I just implemented everything that I learned there, as well as another book called EOS. I can't remember the author, but EOS was like the entrepreneurial operating system. And I just took all of those principles, put it into Boostly, and off I go. Like 99 out of 100 times, I don't need to get involved. Yes, there may be something major, but most of the times I don't need to. It's just my ego needs to be a bit stroked. Sometimes I feel like I need to get involved. So I've just learned to step away.
Yeah. What advice would you give to, call it, budding entrepreneurs, or what advice would you give to younger members of your team who are maybe unsure about what's next, or someone who maybe feels they're in between something? Like yourself, take it when you came back from the US in 08. Like, what advice would you give to little Mark back in 08?
Back in 08. I feel like he made all the right decisions and didn't just stick in the bubble, got out, got to a city. And there's so many mad sliding doors that we could just spend a whole other podcast talking about. But right now, I would say to everybody that's sort of stuck where they are is don't bottle it up. Like, this time last year, I was going through a potential buyout for Boostly, and I kept it all to myself, tried to read all the books about it, but at the end of the day, I had a decision to make, and I ended up getting a therapist, an online therapist, which was one of the best things that I did. I just said to him from day one, listen, I don't want you to give me advice. I just want to talk to you, somebody that hasn't got a clue who I am, that, you know, not my family, not my wife, not parents, not friends or anybody, somebody totally separated from this. I'm just going to talk to you for an hour. And that's it. And it was one of the best things that I did. I got it lined up from, I think I started talking to him start of June 2024. And then up until December 2024, we met every week for an hour on Zoom and we just chatted. And I think that was really good because I've tried journaling in the past, writing it down, can't do it. I just get bored and I think of something else to do. I've done everything, but I find that by talking about it was the best thing that I did. By somebody like a professional to speak to was great. So if there's anybody that's stuck, doesn't really know, just get it out. I feel like don't keep it in. I think that's the worst thing that you can do is keep it in, because I've done that in the past and it doesn't work. So yeah, I know there's a lot of stigma around it, but there's like these great resources like BetterHelp, and there's a few others that are good to go and check out. So yeah, I'd recommend that.
Nice one. And then looking ahead, what excites you most about the future, whether it's business, from a business standpoint, or from family?
Yeah, well, we're about to do a bit of traveling. So the summer holidays, we're off to South Africa, which I'm, again, really excited for. The whole family's coming to do that. And obviously, I'm going to be speaking in Cape Town. We're going to get back. We're going to do a little bit more traveling before the summer's out. And then when we come back in September, we're going to be launching as a company a new product, which is not so heavily reliant on the website agency model. Which I'm very excited for. So, you know, I can get my marketing hat on, my sales and marketing hat on, and really put some good plans down for that. And then, yeah, so plenty of travels, new products coming out, and we'll see what the rest of this year has to offer.
Nice one, mate. And then just give us a quick, if people want to reach out, if people want to get hold of you, I know you mentioned the books as well. If you want to give them a little bit of a shout, I know they've been out for a while, but anyone wants to get hold of you or anyone wants to find more information, what
the
can
best
they do?
place would be the Instagram. I love the Instagram, and it's easy to reach out if I'm not following you. So yeah, Boostly UK, BOOSTLY UK on Instagram. Just send us a message on there if anybody wants to ask any questions about starting up a business and whatnot.
Nice one. Listen, Mark, thanks for your time, mate. If you don't mind, I have a couple of quick fire questions for you as well.
Yeah.
All right, one food that you miss from the US?
In-N-Out Burger.
Oh, that's a great shout, mate. That's a really good shout.
Yeah, I love that.
Is it true that you went on a bring your coach on a date coaches challenge?
No comment.
I'll take that as a yes. Best place you visited in the US?
I've always got a soft spot for like Southern California. So LA, San Diego, that whole PCH. Yeah, I'll always have a soft spot for down there, but there's so many amazing places.
Yeah. What are you singing on the karaoke?
I tell you what I am. It's Will Smith. It's Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Because it's one of those where you don't need to be a good singer, but everybody knows it and you can get everybody involved. So it's a great one. Yeah. I did that in Nashville. Last time I was in Nashville for a conference, we had a karaoke night and I did that and it was good.
Sound. And favorite dinosaur?
Pass.
4 kids. Come on, 4 kids. You've got to have a favorite.
This is gold standard. T-Rex. I've not been through that dinosaur thing, that dinosaur phase. I mean, ask me my favorite Paw Patrol. I mean, I'll be there, but not the dinosaur one. But
I don't have kids, mate, so I have no basis for comparison on the Paw Patrol or Bluey. Apparently, Bluey's a thing as well. All right, mate. And the last question: is it also true? Sorry to do this to you. Is it also true that you got a whole group of coaches kicked out of a hotel?
It wasn't a hotel, it was a bar and it was in Vegas. And yes is the answer. for basically getting my ass out on stage in a club while doing this miming, like guitar miming, riffing thing. It was on July the 4th week, but yeah, no further comment.
All right, that's fair enough. Probably don't do that in Cape Town in a couple of weeks.
Maybe not, no.
Mark, thanks so much for your time, mate. It's been really good. I appreciate you fitting me in.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. If you or someone you know has a story to share, we'd love to hear from you. Reach out to us via our socials or visit www.crossingthepondpodcast.com to get in touch. Please be sure to subscribe, like, or leave a comment if you can. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Across Pond Podcasting.